Hello, and this is episode 6 of the Formula One Fans of America show. We're going to go ahead and kick right off with our recurring topic. We were right, we were wrong. So
always right. There's no wrong topic.
I was right. I called it several weeks ago. K-Mag was going to get hit with a one race ban. He was stacking up penalty points. What I didn't like about this, and I think nobody liked, was he got hit with a 10-second time penalty during the race, and then got points for this as well. There was no significant damage done. It was contact, and it was he locked up, and it was pretty bad, but it wasn't as bad as Hulkenberg's crash into Yuki. And I think it was a little bit harsh from the stewards, maybe just out of patience, and they're taking into account all things K-Mag rather than just this incident. But I didn't think the ice was that thin beneath him to get that point. I like the comments after the race. Everybody was like, "No, it shouldn't have been this harsh. Shouldn't be a penalty point, and shouldn't result in the suspension the way that it did." What's your guys' take on that?
K-Mag got fucked.
Would you like to go first, sir?
Yeah.
Sure. So I will say this now. K-Mag got fucked. I think his persona worked against him in this one. Even Gasly, who was the one he hit, was like, it was wheel to wheel. It was fine. Why are you doing this? He went to the stewards to try to have it reversed. That's how bad it was. I really think the FIA is just kind of done with K-Mag's style, basically, of I'm going to wreck you so my team gets points. I don't give a shit what you do to me. Plus, realistically, K-Mag knows this is his last season. He is done. There is no seat it has. He's not going to, although it would be fucking hilarious if he ended up at Sauber. But he's not going to be anywhere on the grid. He knows this. Everyone knows this. So he's just like, well, you know what? Let's have some fun. The real problem now is, though, they've unleashed the beast with 0 points and 8 races to go. This is going to be fun.
7 technically for him, because he'll be suspended for Azerbaijan.
9 with sprint races.
Oh, good call. Yeah, actually. So yeah, he does have
plenty
of opportunity. Plenty of opportunity for him to.
He only needs one race, really. Let's be real here. But ultimately, it's going to be very, very interesting to watch with K-Mag and seeing what he does. Is he going to actually be the K-Mag that he has been, where he's going to do everything possible to get the team points? Or is he going to be like, man, fuck y'all. You went out and got the French bastard. Seriously. Rich, you should appreciate this one. They literally went and got the French K-Mag.
Yeah. Which is what was so perplexing. I wanted to didn't want to interrupt your flow, but I did want to question one thing you said is he's done. He could go to Sauber. He could. It's one of only 2 seats left that are available.
So
I don't know if he's necessarily done. He's still capable of putting points up. He still can perform. I do think the FIA is sick and tired of his driving style and his ability to make contact. I also really respected Gasly going to the stewards and lodging the complaint. The team said, "Hey, we're just going to take it. We're not fighting it this hard." It certainly seemed way too harsh to me. Yeah, Greg, what was your opinion on that?
Well, it's interesting that Gasly went to the stewards and said, hey, those points really shouldn't matter. It was wheel to wheel, because he did the same thing for Ocon. Anyway, I agree with you. Ocon is the French K-Mag, because both of them are always at it. You can't roll up on them and just expect to get by. you can't have them in your mirrors and expect to like, oh, they're just going to back off. Like they're going to race you hard. And I agree that K-Mag, if the team was in a better position to put up race pace, would have more of an opportunity to get points and be up there. But he does continue to race people hard. There was a remix on YouTube about all the accidents that led up to his current ban. And I would say 3 or 4 of them were not warranted for his points. Like one of them, you know, he raced Hamilton in exactly the same way Hamilton would race anybody, except Hamilton turned in on him and lost part of his front wing, and K-Mag got the points for that. And I was like, that's a typical Hamilton move, not like a Max move. Hamilton move. It was like it's a wipe where like you get to the edge of the track and you're like, hey, passer, you're about to run out of space. And Hamilton just, you know, continued to turn into him. And that's what happens, right? But again, that's like wheel to wheel. That's not like endangering someone's well-being or causing a collision. They did, you know, take it against K-Mag though. So I agree. I don't think he should have got the ban, but it is interesting. You know, Haas runs Ferrari engines. They're going to have Behrman in the seat again. And this is just more spin up for them. So I think the team was like, oh no, K-Mag got banned. Oh no, we'll have Behrman in the seat. So kind of like no harm, no foul. And I agree, it's going to be great to see K-Mag back after a race.
So
it is
you make an interesting. Oh, sorry.
No, I just want to piggyback onto the Behrman thing. Like I agree with you there. I think that's why the team's not fighting it, because they could and reasonably should. But if they have this ulterior motive with letting Behrman into the seat for the weekend, giving him some track time and some time in an F1 car, because he's very well, you know, is going to be competitive soon. So go ahead, Jay.
I was going to bring up the thing that he said about Lewis. Yeah, Lewis does that. Never gets penalty points for it. Like, I think I've seen him, penalized 3 times over that in the past 5 years.
Yeah,
and I mean, that's because a signature move.
Yeah, but I think more
the
people
FIA has that card where it says British, not British equals penalty. Yeah. Damn, I forgot about that yet again.
But Max, he doesn't get penalized for actually running people off the road. There's a difference between wiping someone, like taking the line, and like running somebody off the road. Just put that out there. Ocon and Max are not, and Ocon and K-Mag are not in that category, in my opinion, from the passes I've seen. Ocon's accidents aside. But again, other people had to be involved in them.
That
you know, it's funny too, though. Like when we looked at the data and the stats around the crashes, and we looked at the comparison between drivers, there was that really cool link one of you guys shared for comparing the drivers, and I had to sort of eat my words. Yeah, thank you, Jay. I had to eat my words about Ocon because the comparison, the way that it felt, you know, emotionally to me was that, man, this guy's always crashing. He's the one that's causing all the problems, the damage, the money. And he really wasn't comparative to other people. Also, his performance was significantly better than I would have given him credit for in my own mind. So there's your we were wrong for the week. Also, my other we were wrong was I called pre-summer break that by the end of summer break, we'd know the full 2025 lineup, at least where it is going to stand. And I didn't. And Logan Sargent's gone too. No more national embarrassment.
Logan got fucked on that one.
He got fucked too. Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. Albon has done more damage up to that wreck. I think now they're about equal, if I'm not mistaken. But Albon's done more damage, and I think he has, 3 points this year? Like, he is going to get absolutely decimated next year by Sainz. Like, there is no question in my mind that Sainz is going to spank that little boy badly. And Greg, put it away.
I agree with you. Don't get too excited.
I will agree with you, but I think Sainz is going to beat him on consistent lap times because that's been Sainz's strength, I should say, against Leclerc. Leclerc, arguably, maybe not even arguably, unarguably faster over one lap, typically qualifies better. But for whatever he's doing in race trim, he's having more accidents. You know, he's just not completing as much, despite the fact that he won the 2 races for Ferrari this year. Like that he did flat out did better than Sainz. Sainz had that early run where he was just like kind of untouchable, and that was great for him. But I think that's where Sainz his strength is gonna play against Albon. But it'd be interesting to see if Albon's still faster one lap over. Albon's been with the team longer. Sainz is going to be in a fresh car that's nowhere near as fast. That screws with drivers' confidence big time. And it'll be interesting to see how mature he's become as a driver. So, because after you've been in a Ferrari and you've been winning races, you got to be like, okay, guys, I'm going to go hang out in the back of the pack. Keep having fun without me. Bye. We'll see.
Yeah. Did you guys see Oscar's comment after the race last week where he said Stroll was driving like it was his first year in karting? I liked it. It was pretty spicy. And yeah, he talked about how that, cost him some time. I thought it was
That's
funny.
spicy
Normally,
for anybody, but really spicy for Oscar because that dude's like chill.
Exactly.
Can't wait for the first time he says something angry and we get Oscar the Grouch memes. Looking forward to that moment.
He was still being like, very kind and congenial even when he said it. So like he had a good tone in his voice. He's giving him crap, but love me some Oscar Piastri, man. That kid is awesome. We did call that too. Like he was going to be pushing Lando persistently. Let's talk about Mr. 0-7. Like, when is this dude going to get it right? We like 7 freaking times, man. This guy just can't. I think it was 2 sprints and the rest are GPs.
Does he have
this
a mental
crazy
block? With like, does he just
it's
like get in
gotta
his
be,
head
man.
and can't perform?
It's got to
Or is
be
it,
because
or is
he's
it
blown on the
McLaren's like
first lap.
conservative strategy?
No, I believe it's a mental block, and like it's just all that pressure when the lights are coming down. And he talked about his like anxiety and pressure, like he can't eat on race day, like it's that bad. So I think it's him getting in his own head, unfortunately. But this is something that he can overcome, right? It just takes time and practice and over. He literally has to go and like get into a flow state as he gets to the start. So he can block everything else out and just not think about it. And he's got to find some way. This is one of those things that I have hit on before is, under 25. And that's like the average age that the, frontal lobe fully develops in the male brain. You're not an adult male really mentally until your brain's fully developed. So there's a lot of this pressure, if he came into the sport when he was 25 or came into F1 when he was 25, I don't think we would see this as prominent and pronounced as it is. And so I think that's what's holding him back. It's just mental block, but he can get through it.
But I like the chaos of young drivers. I don't think it's appropriate. I really think there should be more of a tiered strategy. Shouldn't be able to pull people out of F3 and come race F1, even though there have been successes. It'd be cooler if older people were in F1, I think. Not that I'm ever going to be in. However, all age jokes aside for me, I just think we'd get more mature racing. But there is a show for having young people like George Russell banging Bottas on the top of the head after a wreck. Like they're all fired up, and it's because they don't see the forest from the trees. So. No,
it's definitely true. It's just one of those things where, like you don't control your emotions, your adrenaline. It's hard when all that cortisol is pumping through your veins to, keep your stress levels down. And you see it when people break like that, You saw it even as disciplined as Max is and he lost his shit too. And, pushed Ocon after the race. You see the tempers flare up. It's certainly not as bad as NASCAR. Although we have talked in the past. I want to see it. I want to see boxing matches in the pits after these races. I want to see
NASCAR dudes are out. NASCAR dudes are a little boxier, right? They have some beer meat on them. F1 doesn't have that. Like
that old man strength too, man. You get your old man roots and you got old man strength coming in like that. That's a grown man, out here smacking a helmet. No, I'm going to headbutt you.
Mm-hmm. I could have seen. What did you got, Jay?
I was going to say I could see Fernando going at somebody. He's got that like mentality. I think
Checo. Like if Checo crashed him, he would just like grab him by the throat and just pummel his ass.
I think Checo's got a lot of pent up anger. I wouldn't want to put it against him. Like that dude, he's just ready to let go, right?
Mexican and Spaniard fight, dude. Yeah.
And there's a weird mix. We got like a bunch of short dudes who are deadly over short distances, right? Good base, they're nice and stable, and they've got these tall, lanky dudes, lots of reach. Like I don't think George Russell could throw a punch. I wouldn't want to be on the end of a haymaker because his arms are like 80 feet long. He's like an alien. I don't know. How the hell do we get to talking about F1 drivers fighting? And does Yuki know martial arts? I mean, not
Rich.
stereotyping around.
I was gonna say, man, Yuki throwing a head kick at Ricardo after like FP1 crash or something with the helmet on, but that was. Yeah, I like the rabbit hole, man. No, we were talking about the maturity of drivers, the development of the brain, and we started with Lando's mental blockages and how this is impactful in the younger drivers, more so than other drivers in other sports. We've talked about the pressure these young kids face, where you have hundreds of millions of dollars and the weight of your nation on your back. Very few people have to deal with that kind of pressure, and it's an overnight switch for a lot of these kids. Nobody really, outside of uber nerds like us, is paying attention to F2, and nobody knows these kids' names. But then all of a sudden, as soon as you hit F1, everybody knows your name. Mm-hmm. Everywhere you go, you're recognized because you're one of 20 of the greatest drivers at the pinnacle of motorsport. And so now, like, that transition alone is crazy. Like, yeah, I mean, not to reference DTS too much, but you saw it with Russell. Even when he was a driver for Williams, like, still lesser known. As soon as he was driving for Mercedes, he was getting stopped, hit up for autographs, selfies. Everywhere he went, everybody wanted a piece of that dude. And it was just weird, it's a weird thing. Yeah, I don't think there's any way to describe it unless you're kind of in that mentality. So I'm glad I don't have to deal with any of that nonsense. I'm
glad I'm not an F1 driver either.
That nonsense.
Get out of here.
I mean, I would deal with it. With it. Trust me. Believe me. Yeah. Yeah. I think I'd manage it okay. Like I just don't want that kind of, I don't know, people recognizing me all the time. It's just weird.
So you kept on bringing up
Fabian. Yes.
What's up, Fabian?
That guy.
So you keep bringing up the 25 thing. Most of these drivers are at least ADHD, if not autistic. And there's been studies recently that the brain with autism and ADHD does not fully mature until 35, which explains why, we all don't still sit here and fight. Yeah. I was looking at both of
that's Lando surviving.
But, like, I mean, their pattern recognition, their ability to predict outcome, like, it makes sense that most of them would be at minimum ADHD. So
it does.
No, it's interesting.
I would agree with
that. I just
that.
actually read the study yesterday or the day before. So
it's funny because, like, that's what I talk about. Like, he just needs to find his flow state and be able to hone in and block everything out on these starts. And once he can master that, it's an insanely hard thing to do. But once he can master that, like that, then we'll start seeing him get over this hurdle and mental block of, fixing his starts.
So unpopular opinion here, and I know somebody's going to bash on me for this one. Lando is not a world championship caliber driver. He never has been. He has always made those mistakes that will prevent him from getting there. This year is the first year he has a car under him, and he is making the stupidest mistakes that are so much more pronounced. Because realistically, in Monza, he should have had at minimum second place. At minimum.
Right.
Yeah. Fair. I don't disagree with you at all. Yeah. Play good views.
We've seen drivers get better.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. But yeah, it takes time, right? And unfortunately, not everybody gets that time, which is, drawing back to what we were just talking about with our national embarrassment, Logan Sargent. He just didn't get enough time. Yeah.
Logan
didn't have a good enough car.
He didn't have a good enough car, but I think what Logan was missing was that killer instinct. I seem to think he's been getting by in his earlier racing career on just like kind of that like sensible talent, right? Maybe luck, but I don't think you get to Formula One on pure luck. You still got to have some speed behind you. He's probably going to be way better.
Talent, man.
I'm not taking
he
away
had
that he
talent.
had skill. I said skill and
Just
luck.
consistency. He
Oh,
just
okay. I couldn't hear.
he
Stepping on
had
your
skill
comms,
and luck. He just lacked in consistency.
Well,
Unfortunately.
and also you hear him on the radio. He didn't have that like. Normally, drivers will blame somebody else. They'll be like, "That mother effer," or that grass wasn't there the last time I came around that lap. Like they're really quick because their egos are kind of fragile. He was really chill. He was like, "Oh, what did I do wrong?" Like he was trying to work with the team. I think he's going to be way better either in IndyCar doing oval racing where there's a lot of rhythm or endurance racing. I don't think his racing career is over because there were his lap times where he was right on with Albon. I'm like, what is wrong with this dude? Why can't he just do this all the time? Here we are, armchair quarterbacking. He had his reasons, right? So
where
I'm
was
interested
it?
to
It
see
was
where he goes from there.
a few weeks before the break. He was, I think it was Silverstone, maybe. He had the fastest lap of the weekend.
Yeah. Like, can't
And,
you just do that all the time?
So
I had to triple take
here-
over it because I was like, no, like, is this an error? Somebody put a number in wrong? And it's like, no, like he really has it. And it's unfortunately flash in the pan. He can't do it consistently. And I think that's a plague of youth. Again, it's like the curse for it against him. Physically and how demanding F1 is, you do want these guys at their peak athletic performance in their early 20s. I mean, really, that's a huge thing that can't go overlooked. But until you get that grown man strength and those roots in your neck from being moved around all the time, it's hard. So that's something we haven't ever really talked about, the physical toll that F1 takes on the body. Fabian, what do you have about that?
Well, I tell you what, I don't understand it. I mean, I was watching some recent footage of some guys from several years back. I think it was in the late 70s in particular, when the suspensions were so different. The weight distribution was so different. And there was a slowdown part where it said, okay, pay attention to the driver's head, So he comes around the corner, kind of just seemingly lightly bumps this retainer wall, keeps the car together. But when you see the physical thrust, and this is before the Halo, this is before the Hans, this is all pre that stuff, right? To watch the violence of that moment and then that person continue to be able to race the rest of that race in and of itself didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Because I don't care how great your neck is. I mean, the human body apparently can just take a tremendous amount of punishment, right? It really can. And these kinds of things really prove it, because seeing that and watching it over and over again and replaying it back every single time, trying to figure out, like, how did this guy's head not just fall off and roll down, the tarmac of the circuit? It was crazy. I looked at, some clips of, okay, when Joe had his crash, the one where he was the one that wound up, I think, semi upside down, right? And I think it was Russell that went and checked on him in that instance. Just a variety of different things where Formula One, I guess the FIA, you can say, gets a tremendous amount of credit for some of the stuff that they've done with the survival cell and all these different things, because these guys are taking a punishment. So you've got a young kid with a developing mind that's trying to come into their own and figure out who they are. In the meantime, they're on a rigorous, intake of food and workout regimen. And then they're whipping around in these cars all the time at these breakneck paces, having all kinds of contact and incidents. And you just wonder, like, when does it snap, right? I was watching this clip that we posted of Senna, which was really, I think it was considered to be an unseen clip of where he was talking about the competition and the rigor of it and just the mental wear and tear of just being in the competition, let alone how physical it was when Senna and Schumacher and Prost and those guys were out there, banging each other up like lunatics, right? So it's amazing. I mean, truly, you could spend a week just looking at the clips of the moments when these guys are getting like really tossed around and still not come up with an explanation for how they came out of those cars. I think you're muted.
Yeah, so I've done some endurance events, ran a few marathons, a little bit longer as well. It sounds about like running a marathon for 2 hours, with these F1 races. It
Yeah.
is constant stress. You can hear it too. I saw a clip, somebody had their radio, their mic, was hot mic'd, and the breathing that you have to do. And it makes a lot more sense, or at least started to make a lot more sense to me when it was like, why are they so terse, so sharp over the radio, so pissed off? And it's like, the last thing I want to be doing right now is talking
That's
to
fair.
you. I am trying
That's
to
fair.
focus and literally out here fighting. Like
That was
I got a good-
that was Charles Leclerc's open mic that was open, the one you're talking about.
Thank you. Yep.
And man, I mean, every single movement, it was almost like he was doing Hickfoot breathing. He was on it, like seriously.
Mhm.
And they finally got a break where they could tell him, like, mute your mic, and he was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Because he sounded like he was in the throes of some crazy stuff.
So
Very excited.
Got it.
Man.
great little factoid. I love this little fact. So back in the day for MotoGP, there was a documentary called Faster, and it highlighted the difference between a few of the people that went up against Valentino Rossi. So Max Biaggi was one of them. Sete Gibernau was one of the other ones. And the doctor who used to take care of the MotoGP grid, he put heart monitors on Rossi and on Max Biaggi. And he was just following him around, just like taking the data and whatnot. And what he found was that Rossi's heart rate was really low. And it wasn't like he was crazy fit or anything, because he was a scrawny dude. And Biaggi was just sort of normal sized. There's a difference in how people's mental state dictates what their body does. Like the doctor described it as Rossi, also known as the doctor, being at play. Like his heart rate was just enough to do what he needed it to do. Biaggi was literally having like just shy of a panic attack trying to deal with racing against Rossi. Sete Gibernau was in the same boat. Phenomenal racing riders. And I've seen this in motorsports as well, the amateur stuff that I do. There are people that come off after a 1-minute autocross run out of breath. And we're like, do you breathe? And they're like, yeah. And like, they are actually breathing, but holy crap, their heart is racing, their adrenaline's pumping, and they're just freaking out. I don't seem to get like that, but I unless I'm doing go-kart endurance racing, I'm not really out there like doing anything physical. I'm just like sawing away at the wheel, like whatever. So there's definitely a difference. And I think you'll hear it in the voices of the racers.
Yeah.
There were times where Kimi sounded like he was falling asleep, but there were other times where it sounded like he was freaking the hell out. I'd be willing to bet you it's setup dependent. It's year dependent based on how hard the cars are to drive.
That makes sense.
And some of those laps, like Monaco, there's nowhere to rest, but
No.
Monza, there's lots of places to rest, or, some of the other like big ass tracks. Anyway, that's all I
So-
want.
No, that's actually really good, because you reminded me of Max making the comment about the telephone ringing in the background, in the midst of like mayhem, right? Because in my estimation, doing 180, 190 miles an hour and coming into a turn, breaking down to 53 miles an hour is mayhem. Like, that's serious. We looked at the funny clip of Charles, bumping his Ferrari into the back of somebody's a car in the turn in Monaco. It's like, here's a guy that can come from 200 to 30 in no time flat and not rear end an F1 car, but he's at 7 miles an hour, talking and joking around, and he's rear ending people in Monaco. Right? So, there's a lot going on here. And to hear Max just so effortlessly say, is that Helmut's phone ringing? Like, whereas in the clip with Charles, he's like, just breathing through every single moment, and he's chasing someone. And I guess that's right. Like, your mindset, when you're on the chase. Even Lewis mentioned something about this recently, didn't he? Where he was like, it was kind of boring being out front all the time. He said he'd have to make up like 8 cars in front of him that he was chasing to make it exciting for himself. I think Max probably has that same thing going on when he's in that situation too, because he was just like looking at the billboards and reading the other people's times. What the hell?
So
well,
the
and you
helmet
see
thing,
the
I wanna
frustration
say-
now when you see his frustration when he has to go wheel to wheel with McLaren now, and he doesn't like it. He doesn't have that significant advantage, the same that Lewis had with where the car is just ungodly. It's just so much better than anything anybody else has, and you can just rest and rely on that. And that certainly does take the pressure off your mind. Whereas now, like, you saw that frustration bubbling over because he's in a position that he's not used to and hasn't been in quite some time. Several years. Sorry for cutting you off, Jay. Go ahead.
Okay.
I was going to say, so what Greg was saying about the motocross thing and supercross and everything like that, I'm pretty sure it's the same with the F1 cars, is the arm pump. Like, I mean, that holding that wheel has got to be insanity. You always see like the tension things, everything like that. So if theirs is probably worse than what mine was on a dirt bike, guaranteed. And I mean, that's cross country motocross. You're literally just going like this the whole time. So there's that. To Fabian's point about the Max hearing Helmut's phone, that was in 21 while he was battling with Lewis. That wasn't even him just being stuck out in the front. That was him just paying attention to everything.
Right.
And then the other thing is we've already heard people say this before. For Alonso said this in 22? Lewis can't drive if he's not in front, or it might have been 21 that he said it.
Mm.
And because he got so used to being in the front and not having to deal with it and everything else. Like you were saying, he had to make up imaginary cars, everything like that. So there's a factor of that as well. I mean, you do have to challenge yourself mentally just to stay in it. And I mean, somebody like Max, who literally, we've talked about this countless times, lives and breathes racing. How do you keep that challenge up for yourself at all times whenever you're doing your side gig that funds your main gig? Mm-hmm. So it's like, I feel for him. I really do. So we'll see where it goes. I'll be interested because we're either going to see one of the two come back. It's either you're going to see Max of 21, where he is going to frustrate the ever-living shit out of Lando. And that is going to be his main goal because he knows that he can get underneath Lando's skin just like he knew he could get under Lewis's skin. If he can get back to that type of racing, I think you see Lando fall out of contention real quick and Oscar picks up the pieces and comes right in. Because no matter what, I do believe there will be in either first or second this year, there will be a papaya car. So we'll see which one it ends up being. But yeah, no, it's going to be really interesting to see how Max adapts to being back behind cars. So
yeah, for sure.
Agreed.
I am eager to root him on. I actually want to see Max succeed from behind. That sounded sexier than necessary. I want to see him fight from further back in the grid for his success. Like,
we know what you meant,
Max. Anyway, cool.
Just want to see him pushing from behind. Yes. Yeah. Jay, we're going to have our new recurring topic, Jay's Conspiracy Corner. Jay, what do you have for conspiracy theories this week?
Ooh, tinfoil hat time.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that the conspiracy theory is Red Bull told Checo to start making comments about retirement because he's gone after the Mexican GP pretty much. I think they're going to, I think Checo's going to announce his retirement at the Mexican GP to allow him to finish out the year, which gives Red Bull second or third in the Constructors' Championship and gives them a shit ton more time in the wind tunnel. And I think their new wind tunnel comes online in 25, doesn't it? Or is it 26?
Red Bulls? I don't know. I'm not sure when theirs comes on.
Either way, it's going to be good timing for them with the regulation changes. So
yeah. I know Austin's is this year, I think. Right? Theirs is in a couple of months. But I don't know.
Yeah, I'm searching it right now.
Yeah.
Oh, 27.
Okay.
So they'll open up in 27.
Sense than a standard conspiracy theory. This is right in line with what F1 type of teams would do.
Yep.
So
same as taking,
it's all
taking before you get the playoffs to get a draft pick. Oh, yeah. I don't think it's that. I think this is team strategy. I think it's logical and it makes sense. It makes sense for them to be able to get this. But yeah, good dive into the Liberty Media stuff.
So Daniel Ricciardo was literally in Max's helicopter, like ready to go, everything like that. They weren't just doing it because they're buddies, because When has Max ever taken any of them other than I think
And
Lando?
They weren't buddies. Like they're coming back
they're
from a bad
buddies.
spell.
Yeah, but so you have Max and Danny hanging out, chilling, which really doesn't happen that often from what public persona is. Let's preface it with that.
Mhm.
And everybody is saying Checo's gone. Not even just like, oh, Johnny says so, YouTuber, but this is F1. This is, what's his name? The really annoying dude that's like on Drive to Survive all the time.
Gunther?
Oh, Will Buxton.
No, Will Buxton. Thank
Will
you.
Buxton? Yeah.
Yep. Sitting down.
I'm not agreeing
right
that he's
in
always
front of
annoying.
Sitting down right in front of Checo's car and makes this is what we are hearing is that he has till Spa to prove himself. Like this is, like I said, this isn't some random YouTuber throwing shit out like me. This is just legitimate F1 pundits saying he's gone. And if this was the case and they were having a meeting about everything and they knew they were going to keep Checo, why not just defend him straight from the beginning at Spa weekend? Like, no, this isn't what's happening. None of this is going on. Y'all are full of shit. Shut up. So I think they were literally in the meeting room. Liberty Media either came to the meeting or called into the meeting and was like, if you fire him, we are going to lose billions on this. Because you figure you have what? Las Vegas, Coda left in the United States. You have Mexico and Brazil, which he's huge in both those. And people love him in Baku. So you have 5 races that if you cut him out of, you're going to have a world of hurt and you're going to lose a lot of merchandising. You're going to lose a lot of people actually coming to the fucking race, which looks bad on you. And you lose a ton of ratings. And I've said this before. There is literally only $10 million difference between first and second place in the constructors and 20 between second and third.
Yeah. The wind tunnel time means more to them.
They make more off of Checo in merchandising, social media, and appearances and sponsors than that. They make quadruple that. So Liberty Media, I think, is the one that really stepped in here. And it's not the first time they've done shit to step in and be like, hey, let's amp this up a little bit. Because you got to remember, they're the ones that went to Netflix for Drive to Survive. So they're like, hey, let's get some drama going. Controversy creates cash. So that's my conspiracy theory for the week.
I like it. Fabian, you got anything on these?
Turn off my mic. I think it's very interesting that this is the conversation at this juncture in the season. When, if you look back at 2023, it was the same conversation about Checo retiring. There was a big groundswell of information around October. That right here was where we are about Checo retiring and Christian Horner having to talk to the media, saying, I think one of the things let me find one. He said, yeah, Checo's in a bit of a spiral. He's going through some challenges. But, we hope that he'll find his form for the remainder of the season and be in contention for a championship in 2024. Like, that's interesting. So you factor that in, and then you look at what's occurred this season, and the really interesting hypothesis you guys came up with about him being a father and the children. And then you look at the recent Planet F1 report where he mentioned something about, he wants his youngest son to see him race. It looks like there's a timeline, like there's a funnel. I got to get this done. I got to get this done. I need my youngest kid to see me do this. And then I think I'm ready to pack it up, basically, which is what it seems like. Now, whether or not, Liberty Media and all the others around it are responsible for how it all played out, it is particularly curious that Horner, Ricardo, and Max were hanging out like butt buddies that day, and the whole, flying off into the sunset together. I mean, it really looked like they were deliberately orchestrating a silent look into what was about to happen. That's what it looked like. You know, if somebody had asked me straight up, you know, will Daniel Ricciardo be in the Red Bull seat come next week? My answer would have been, yeah, there's no way it can't be, because there's just too much going on with Ricciardo at that moment. And then for it to just, the whole way the whole thing played out was just nuts. So I don't like to agree with Jay and his conspiracy theories, but I have to kind of say that this one fits. I mean, if he can entertain my Max Verstappen hid his, his blurred vision to continue to try to win the championship story, then I can give him a little bit. I can give him a little bit of powder on this one. No, I think Jay's onto something. I mean, when you spend enough time cultivating and nurturing conspiracy theories as Jay does, you're going to strike gold once in a while.
It's true.
And I think he struck gold on that one.
You do realize most of this is just the random information in my head, and it's like my filter literally breaks for like 2 minutes and it just comes out. It's great. I don't even think about this shit.
I know. It's amazing, man. I mean, because I think you struck gold on this one, but I think you're good.
Jay, for this segment, can you please make a tinfoil hat so that when you're ready to do it, you're like, here we go, people. And next, from the back of my brain, while I was taking a shower,
Rich needs to do it in his control as an overlay that Jay can't get away from. Just
wait. Yeah, exactly. If I can make that happen.
We should wear them, right? So when Jay starts talking, we're like, "Whoa, I gotta shield myself from this nonsense."
Yeah,
I think you're right on this one. I don't think this is nonsense. I think this is a legit exit strategy.
He's good
for Checo. That's respectable. He's had a great career.
Yes,
I'll make a tinfoil hat when I get back to the States. Yeah, this is my last episode in Europe for the next 3 months, so the show will get better. I'll have more time to devote to it, and yeah, I'm looking forward to some downtime.
That's
but
awesome.
Yeah,
hold on 1 second. I got
Great.
one little piece of information here.
Oh, here we go. What you got, Jay?
The difference between last year and this year is Checo's total from Miami last year in points is 323 points. Max is currently at 303 for just this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, there's no way they can even remotely compare the two seasons, because Checo last year at least had some fucking redeeming qualities. He hasn't had a pole this year. He hasn't had or a natural pole. He hasn't had a race win since what? Miami.
Fifth race of the season?
No, last year. This was last year. Because that's whenever Max snapped and he's like, I'm not fucking losing to him again. So,
yeah.
Like, realistically here, I think his last race win was a while ago. No, go away.
Yeah, you're right. I was thinking it's already September. I just said it was October last year when they were talking about his retirement. This year has gone by so fast. God have mercy.
Yeah,
Crazy.
So his last race win was Azerbaijan in April of 23. Since then, he's had like 7 or 8 did not finishes and crashes and everything else. Like, I don't see how Red Bull keeps him, because now it's not about money. It is no longer about money. It's about coming up against. No, hold on. It's about coming up against that cost cap is the problem.
Yeah. Yep.
So while
Which is
money,
something,
it's not like,
which is something I think we're going to see Max get hit with again. And this is going to, he's going to have to get hit with a grid penalty for replacing an upgrade. And I think we're going to see, well, I'll save my bold predictions for the end of the show when we start talking about Baku. But Greg, we're doing another segment, Tech Talk with Greg. Let's talk about Flexi Wings.
All right. So why do wings have to flex?
Not the ones you get at Buffalo Wild Wings, the wings on the front of the cart and the back.
Well, wings have to flex because they're going to hit things. And the teams want them to flex because they can take advantage of that. And over the years, the teams have changed how they flex wings. So I got a couple images here to show some differences. Let's go over here. I'm going to do a little screen share jam. Oh, man, I went the wrong way. I'm back into Logan Sargent pictures here. Okay. So Let's do a little present here. We're going to share screen. And which one are we doing here? Let's select a tab. And we'll do this one. Rear wing, front wing comparison. There we go. Oh, window. Yep. Got it. I am tech savvy. Okay. So on screen, you should see comparison of Lewis Hamilton's car circa 2000 and mid something 2000s. And then this is most likely Vettel. So forgive the minor details, but as you can see, the wing on the Red Bull is really low to the ground on the tips. And what this is generating is a serious amount of ground effect. You can feel this like if you ever use like one of the real powerful hair dryers in a bathroom, you just get your hands just barely close together and they all of a sudden start producing like hordes of suction, suck them together. This is blatant, right? Like this is producing double-digit points in downforce increase here. So they have to set the car up around that amount of bend. So the teams were like, yeah, we got this figured out. And then the FIA was like, hold on a second. This is producing an effect that is impossible for the other teams to catch up mid-season, right? So now you've got one team that's just going to run away with everything. So they're like, no, you can't let them bend that much. And the test they came up with was just to hang a weight at the tip. And the teams are like, oh, okay, we're going to test this, right? So they hang a certain number of weight there. Probably they went and put weight on the Red Bull wing until it started to bend. And they were like, that's exactly how much weight we're going to use to test everybody else's wings. So they said, Red Bull wing is now illegal. You got to make it stiffer. And they went over and tested everybody else's wings. And of course, they were fine. So the other teams were like, oh, now we understand what Red Bull was doing. So we are going to change the way we bend our wings. And it doesn't bend at the tip anymore. Now it gets rake. So this is just a totally different way to bend. And this, I believe, fans, correct me if I'm wrong, this was when the teams realized that they could use like rubber inside or in the interface between the carbon pieces that comprise the nose and the wing. And the wings would actually tilt back at speed, causing more downforce. Now, this was in an era where they wanted more downforce up front. The current flavor is to get rid of downforce at higher speed because now they're generating a ton of downforce with the floors, right? So this is just, teams marching on. They're finding new and improved ways to get around the FIA test. So it was really hard for the FIA to get around this. So they were just like, hey, don't do that anymore. To give an example of how they get around this stuff, here's where the FIA tests. This is a static weight being held on the wing, and it deforms to this level roughly, right? So here's the flex here on the vertical axis. That's how much it's flexing. And as a comparison, they'd only be going this fast for that FIA test to be realistic. But in reality, they go this fast. And here's what's really happening. The FIA says, we want you to be at this sort of flex amount. And here's where the teams are, where they're getting to. And one of the ways they were doing this, I'm going to scoot back here a couple of things. You'll notice that there's these little metal bars that hold the winglets together, right? If you'll notice, these have come and gone with the regulations. These hold the wings from collapsing down on top of each other, right? Because when they collapse on top of each other, they stall, right? So the air can't do downforcey things. It just turns into a bit of drag, and they take that drag and they turn it into vortices that help further back on the car. So the front wing is an extremely powerful way to tune the rest of the airflow across the car. So now let's get to the rear wing. This was a rig that they had set up. This is obviously an older car where the wing stanchions were more vertical back in the day when they were squeezing in between the rear tires. Nowadays, obviously, they're far different. They're trying to prevent vortices by using those nice open wing elements that you see up top on the current cars. But the rig is similar. This rig pulls straight back. Now that's all fine and dandy, but again, it can only mimic so much. And as you can see with the little test graphic here, they're still getting like crazy deformation. And the best way I can explain it, the way teams are getting around this is one static load being applied basically just to down here and these upper stanchions. So the load goes through this bar, down through the stanchions, through the bottom element, and into these mounts. But that's not what the air is doing, right? What the air is doing is the air is pushing on everything. So the whole wing sort of deforms and bends backwards out of the way. This isn't cheating. This is circumventing the rule book. And in F1, holy moly, the teams are phenomenal. It's literally people's jobs to circumvent the rules. End of tech talk. Talk amongst yourselves.
No, so I love it. And it's a perfect and natural segue into our main topic of this week. And cheaters cheating, people trying to break these rules. Came up with this from the old video where teams were intercepting the signal for the light, and the FIA figured this out, and they offset the timing of the lights with the timing of the signal and kept it the same. And you saw several teams jump the start in the beginning of the race, and you knew immediately, okay, you guys were, cheating and intercepting the signal. It would play like 100 milliseconds before the lights were actually going to go off, and it would give you an advantage over everybody else. So instead of visual, you had an audio clue to like go ahead and start right then, which led to people starting perfectly. I'm sure Lando regrets not being around during this time and would love something like this. What is somehow he would get inside his head, until maybe he's 35. So what do you guys have on some of the cheating? What are some of your favorite cheating moments? Fabian, we'll go ahead and start with you.
So would the Schumacher pit lane victory be one? that one popped up in my head.
Bending of the rule, or was that actual cheating? I mean, how would you classify that?
Both, boss.
I don't understand I guess I can't wrap my mind around winning parked in the pit lane. Like, that just doesn't work with racing to me. I would think that you really have to be on the outside the pit lane, on the circuit itself, crossing.
And do me in the audience a favor and reference tell the backstory behind this.
So I don't remember the year off the top of my head, but what it was he had to serve a penalty, and to serve the penalty he had to do it in the pit lane. So what he did, and this was, I think, him coming up with this on his own with his extensive knowledge of the rules. This was driver creativity at its finest, I would say. He realized at some point that if he went into the pit lane at this particular circuit, he would cross the finish line and then enter his pit stall, where he would then sit as the rest of the race continued. And even it was so bizarre that the commentators actually then picked up on what the hell was going on. They were like, wait a minute. Like, what is he going to serve his penalty? And then they're like, wait a minute. Does that mean he officially won the race? And they start having this conversation because they're like, because officially he crossed the finish line. And damn sure that's exactly what it was. There was this vagueness in the language and the way the penalty is applied that he exploited literally in real time, and just basically parked his car and waited for everyone to realize that he had just sucker punched everybody. And it's on our page. We posted it about a month ago. It's there. It gets a lot of reactions till this very day. You can go into our feed and see that people are reacting and commenting on that moment. And I just thought, wow. I mean, I can't rule that out as being a cheat. Obviously, I guess technically it was, because they had to clarify it, and then it was never allowed to be done that way again. But kudos to him for being that knowledgeable of the minutia of the rule, to the extent that he could just go park the car in the pit lane and win a race.
No, it's pretty awesome. Greg, do you have a favorite bending or cheating moment? Bending of the rules or cheating?
So a lot of mine aren't necessarily like cheats, but they are new technologies that nobody else had thought of, and they were competition altering. Renault had a mass damper in the front of their car, and drawings have to be submitted. And sometimes they submit a drawing, and the FAA is like, we don't have a rule for that. It turned out to be a pretty big thing. Renault had, put it in there when Alonso was driving for them back in their championship winning days. And this thing just hopped curbs like a champ. Like it had actual front suspension, it would just come down and it would just stay down. Any of the super hobby nerds out there have ever heard of Tamiya 4-wheel drive mini cars? They run around on a track. It's kind of like a slot car, but battery powered. Those are all about mass dampers. It's the only reason they stay in the track. Otherwise, they just fly the hell off and hit the wall. This was genius stuff, but it was, again, one of those technologies that unless everybody developed it, it would be like a constant benefit for that one team. So, of course, it got banned. So cheat? No. Interesting interpretation of the rules? Yeah, I do think so. And it wasn't one of those like we're just going to make something slightly better by cheating it up a little bit. No, it was like, here's an entirely new idea that had never been done, as far as we know, in Formula One before. And they pulled it off and reaped the benefits for, I would say, half a season or something like that.
Wow. That's cool.
It's pretty awesome.
It sounds like
Yeah.
that magnetic shock absorber thing that Cadillac came up with years ago to me when you were describing how the mass damper works.
Yeah.
The way
It's literally just a floating piece of weight. So they had to
That's-
carry this weight around. They make the rest of the car lighter. And when you go over a curb, it compresses the bottom spring, and then you come down and it compresses the top spring, and it sort of mellows it out. I'm trying to think of another example,
That's
a real
cool.
life example of a mass damper, but there's just not that many of them. Like, it's one of them weird things.
So my favorite is the Renault Crashgate, because it was such an egregious thing to happen. And one of the things that we harp on in this, and I always end up conceding in debate to Jay, is like a safety issue. It should never happen in this sport where you're crashing into somebody intentionally. The stakes are way too high. Fortunately, we haven't had a driver's death in a long time, but intentionally crashing someone, even if you're doing it in the safest manner possible, it's in like an unforgivable offense, and it should absolutely lead to a lifetime ban that stands. Like Briatore.
Oh,
Like, yeah. Oh yeah, don't get me started on that, Fabio. Like, I won't go too deep down in that rabbit hole or you get on my soapbox about it, but like, man, don't like it. A lifetime ban from the sport is what's necessary, and like that needs to be the rule. Like you can't go around crashing into people intentionally in this sport. It's just there's too much at risk and too much at stake with the speed and the G forces and the way things are. So,
But somehow Flavio's
especially back in 2008. Yeah, I know. Cash is king,
Aggravating.
baby. The root of all evil rules it all. So no big surprise there. But yeah, Jay, what do you got?
I'm going to go with 2019 Ferrari engine controversy because it feeds into the next topic, and I'm going to steal your line on that one. But the engine penalty or the engine tampering that Ferrari was doing during 2019 to circumvent their fuel regulation and everything like that was just giving them phenomenal speed down the straights to the point where any distance was easily overcome. If they were within a certain amount, they were passing you. There was nothing you could do. And in fact, at one point, I think it was this season, Fabian, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this the one where Vettel actually smashed into Hamilton's wheels because Hamilton was being a jackass? And like, yeah, that's what I thought. But like, that's how much it was like, okay, we're going to win this year. This is going to be Vettel's fifth championship, Ferrari's first one since 2007, 6. I can't remember where it was at. I know it was Raikkonen, but I can't remember where it was at. But yeah, no, like it was just an amazing use of technology that they were doing because it was almost untraceable. And the fact that it took like 12 races or 11 races into the season to notice that something was actually that wrong. And then all of a sudden Ferrari just straight nosedives and has not really returned to prominence since is incredible to me because it's essentially one of those, if you aren't cheating, you aren't trying. But if you're going to cheat, you're going to get hit hard. Now, where I was saying this is going to segue into the next thing is the FIA came out and said they reached a settlement with Ferrari. They never said what the settlement was for, what it was about, or anything of the like. And this is why I say Red Bulls was not using the asymmetric braking valve, is because they would have nailed Horner's balls to the cross because they are looking for a reason after all of file 76. And Greg, that's kind of distracting there, brother. What are you doing later? But like realistically, Horner put a dark spot on the sport with whatever he did, whether it was mutual, whether it wasn't, it came out and it shouldn't have. They would look for a reason to own him. And this would be the perfect way to do it. So if you look at everything, and I think me and Rich talked about this on the last episode for ad nauseum, was with the 12, 13, and 14, I think it was, with the zero pod concept that they went to. They kept on saying, we can't figure out what's going on, but there seems to be a ceiling. No matter what we do to take this car to the next level, it can't go. And we all know that the RB20 took a lot of features from that W13 because Adrian Newey or whichever tech person they want to throw under the bus for the RB20 did, they took that and tried to fuck with Toto. Being like, look, we can do this. You couldn't. Fuck you. And it backfired. And I think that's why every upgrade is failing them now. I know there was times where Toto and Lewis and every engineer that they had was saying everything is working in the tunnel. The same thing Red Bull is saying now about the RB20. Mercedes was saying in 22, 23, saying that everything is working in the tunnel. We don't get why these upgrades are not working. And that is why I think that is that. Also, the fact that it was an actual rule change instead of a technical directive is another telling sign. So, Fabian, I've been waiting to argue with you on this one for so long. Let's go.
On which? On you talking about the braking thing?
Like everything that's come out since then.
I still don't see it that way. But I spent my time actually preparing something way juicier for you.
Ooh.
Related to crashing. You know, there was the crash gate thing was PK, right? That was PK.
Yep.
I believe that there was another crash gate scenario that was blatant cheating that occurred. There goes his eyes. I got him. I got him. When Latifi crashed in Abu Dhabi, the radio transmission right before that was, it has to be now. And the next thing you know, he's in the wall, triggering a safety car with 6 laps to go.
But they had a Mercedes engine. Why would they wreck when Lewis was winning?
Huh? Say again?
They had a Mercedes engine. It's a Williams car. Like it's a
Oh, yeah, I understand that.
feeder path for Mercedes stuff. So why would they wreck? Like
This
Lewis
is
was
where-
running away with the race.
This is where conspiracies get even juicier and get better.
Okay.
Because they were trying to help Max out, and they did. You know, it created the whole situation. Didn't Checo have to go into the pits in that race? Wasn't that the same race, same year?
I mean, everybody has to go into the pits.
I'm just saying, like, didn't it when it was what was it 6 laps to go in the race? Didn't somehow Checo get impacted by that too? This is where I feed this all to Jan and let him sort it out. But no, so the
Waiting the beast.
yeah, the radio transmission is a little. It could be misinterpreted, but it also could be very curious about, well, you know, if you're going to do it, it has to be now. And then moments later, he's in the wall, and that triggers the safety car, which then creates the opportunity to have the whole safety car thing happen.
I know how you can prove your point or not, all right? Or at least get to the next step of either nonsense or this has legs.
Right.
Go back to that race, find out when that radio transmission, which will be difficult to pinpoint, and see if Latifi was due for a pit stop. Because before a pit stop, a lot of times they'll throw a hot lap down. And that is when crashes will happen, when you're low on tires and you know your grip is inconsistent. He's trying to throw a hot lap down. He reaches out and taps the wall with the rear tire.
Right.
If it did not coincide at all with a pit stop, I will agree with you one step further than me not agreeing with you at all right now.
Right. I got you. Yeah. Well, I will do that because I want. I mean, I think Jay's already down the rabbit hole, but it's so much fun.
So what you're forgetting is that he was trying to get past Mick. That's why his engineer came over the radio and said, either you do it now or you're not going to be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, like my esteemed colleague below, who's bought into the conspiracy just a tiny bit, why the fuck would Williams, who had been statistically a serial feeder team for Mercedes, have anything to do with that? Because if
anybody can answer that question, You can.
So if this was the case, Toto would know about this. Like, let's be fucking real here. Toto would absolutely know that this was going to go down. There's no way that this would have gotten past that man. Now, here's the fun part. This is where you connect it in. Toto's message to Massey was, no, Mikey, no, no, no. And it's been fucking relentlessly memed.
Right.
How many times? He became the laughing stock of the F1 community for a good solid, 3 years now because of that.
Right. That's true.
Like, that's not Toto. Toto would slam his headphones down, would do shit like that, yes. But he wouldn't be whining like a little bitch on the radio.
Well, I don't know about that.
Hold on. Chill. Like that, how he was doing like that. Like, have you seen my email? That's one thing. But
right.
Realistically, I cannot see Toto allowing that to go outside of his grasp. Now, the only thing I could think of is that Mick was fucking with him because his daddy's record was on the line.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you would say Mick had something to do with it, because I want to say it was either Vettel or Mick that was right there around Latifi whenever he crashed.
I'm thinking,
and I know there was a lot of shit being thrown up because of the Schumacher 7 World Championship record. I know there was a lot of shit being thrown up because of that right there.
Uh-huh.
And I want to say they were saying that Vettel did have something like around that area.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm one like that. If you went that route, I'd be like, cool, I believe you. Like them clipping, if they would clip Latifi or something like that, one of those two, I'd be like, all right, I feel you. You win, no questions asked. But this, no, that's loose at best. Like, and that's coming from somebody who will go far-reaching for a conspiracy theory. But if I remember correctly, he was coming out of the pit lane or getting ready to come in for a pit. I just can't remember which way it was going. And they told him, if you're going to pass Mick, or if you're going to do it, you have to do it now. Which he'd been trying to get past Mick the entire time. So I'm thinking that's what it was.
That's plausible, for sure.
So ultimately, the only person that actually knows is Latifi.
Right.
And
Fair.
I mean,
Yeah.
If Latifi was going to say something after he lost his Williams seat, would have been the time to do it. That would have been the absolute perfect time.
Just figured I'd throw that little Crashgate conspiracy theory out there for you.
I like
you
it.
can always come up with something good.
Good addition.
Appreciate it.
So Baku and Azerbaijan's coming up this weekend, gents. I'll go ahead and kick it off with my prediction. My prediction is McLaren is going to surpass Red Bull in the constructors after this race. They are 8 points behind. All it takes is one mistake from Red Bull, and McLaren's going to come up. I think the cars are too good. The upgrades have responded too well, and you were watching Max significantly struggle. I think he's going to have a bad weekend this weekend too. I don't think he'll make a podium. So that's my other bold prediction is no podiums for Red Bull. I think Daniel Ricciardo is going to get into qualifying in the third round and hopefully get in the top 10 for quali. So that's my other bold prediction. DR3 has a good weekend this week. But who wants to go next? What are you guys' bold predictions for this weekend? Fabian, you go ahead.
Okay. I don't have Max on the podium. Don't see that happening. Neither Red Bull. I actually believe that we might see Alonso in the top 5 in this race, just based upon the way the circuit's laid out and some of the opportunities it presents for his driving style. I 100% agree that McLaren's going to overtake on the Constructors' Championship. I can't, at this point, with the way they've been handling things, I just don't know what to say about positions, on the podium if they're there, to be honest with you. I saw all the conversations about Piastri's influences and why he did what he did and all that wonderful conversation. ultimately, Piastri is exactly what I've said he is. That's Michael Corleone. He don't give a shit. He's on the come up, and they're gonna have a hard time reining that dude in. But I do see them performing well. I mean, the car is great. You know, Lando is driving fairly well considering his starts. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility to see both McLarens on the podium this weekend, for sure. But I don't have a definitive 1, 2, 3 in my head for this one, just because of the circuit. You know, with the
Yeah,
limited run.
I'll wrap up with my podium predictions. But yeah, I agree. This is a difficult weekend to put it. If you had to assign your 1, 2, 3 though, like as tough as it is, like yeah, take a leap. I mean, these are our bold predictions. Who do you think is going 1, 2, 3, or who do you think is going to be on the podium? Anybody?
I definitely have. I think both McLarens will be there.
Yeah. What about a Ferrari?
I don't know.
Quick track, short track. I don't know. Greg, what do you got? What do you got for bold predictions?
I do think Ferrari will kind of split their setups. I think they're going to bring a little bit of Monaco and a little bit of their Italian GP setups with them. I don't know who they're going to split who with, but this track is unique in that the straightaway is really long, and it's going to be all about late braking, tight turns, fast speeds. So I do think Ferrari is going to fare better at this race than they have at some of the other ones. If there's weather, which there probably won't be, but if there is weather, I think Mercedes are the ones to look to take the risk and put one car blatantly on a wet weather strategy and the other one not, because we've seen them do that a number of times so far this year. McLaren, definitely, I think, class of the field right now. I also agree that Checo's not going to add to the constructors' points. So, McLaren's probably going to take that over. And it'll be interesting to see what Max can do with the car in this scenario, because this isn't one of those tracks that you can like finesse a good lap time out of. You're just pinpoint accurate on the brakes. You get through cleanly, and you let the car do all the top end work. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. So my top 3 is going to be, either both McLarens and maybe a Ferrari, or maybe there's a rare Max and or Mercedes sticking up there. But I don't see anybody. I don't see any other cars like standing out. We no longer have like the top fuel Williams that's like causing a DRS train. It's just sitting there in the mix with everybody else. So it'll be interesting to see. I would love to see Behrman just do good again, right? I want to see some excitement with random person stepping in. And I would love to see somebody else just randomly do good. That's it's what we all want. I want to get somebody to get a random pole, but McLarens have 2 good drivers. The cars are ballistic right now. And it's going to take Max at full tilt and maybe full aggression. And it's going to take a roll of the dice by one of the Mercedes. Yeah, that's my prediction for this racetrack.
I like it. Jay, what about you?
Do you want the podium or the bold prediction first?
Do bold prediction and then wrap with your podium prediction.
McLaren not on the podium because they revisit 2018 Baku. Lando is going to lose his shit because Oscar's going to go past him, and he is going to ram that fucking McLaren straight up Oscar's ass end.
He's going to pull a Max Daniel Ricciardo moment?
That's what I'm saying. I will die of fucking laughter if that happens. Like, legitimately die of laughter. I think you're on to something with the Ferraris. I think they won't have the benefit of the 1-stop versus 2-stop in this race. So I think them taking a 3rd place or 2nd place is more realistic. I think, being that we know there's going to be no weather issues, Red Bull runs that one setup where it is absolutely just there. And everybody has said it. There is one space that they can exist and be perfect. And if you see that come out, Max first. We're going to give Sainz second. It's been a while for Sainz. And 3rd, Lewis. Oh, God. Makes me itchy.
You need to go shower, sir.
I know, right?
That's great.
But Alonso in top 5, I agree with that.
Yeah, I I agree with Alonso top 5. He's been pushing pretty well. He manages this track. This is an Alonso track. I think my podium is going to be 1, like either McLaren driver, 2 George Russell, and then 3rd, either McLaren driver. So that's my bold podium prediction. I think George Russell is going to pull one out this weekend and have himself a good race weekend. So if not George Russell, I would expect Charles Leclerc. He's got this rhythm. He's coming off of that win. I think he wants to carry that momentum forward with him. And so that's where the Ferrari comes in my mind. I think as long as the car is set up right for him and they run the right setup, he's going to push very, very hard. One of the things you pointed out, Greg, was you can finesse this through. And I think Leclerc can finesse it through. He just has to hit it exactly right, because otherwise he's not going to be able to hang with McLaren. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a 1-2 McLaren podium either. So I would say, my bold prediction is McLaren 1 and 2 on the podium, and then 3rd, either Ferrari or Mercedes, probably Russell. Alrighty, gents, this has been episode 6. Thank you everybody for listening. We will be back next week, and we'll be talking about all things Azerbaijan. We were right, we were wrong. Jay's Conspiracy Corner and Tech Talk with Greg. So thank you for listening. This has been episode 6.